universe discussion, we talked about some of the limitations of the model Marvel has taken to its movies. We've talked about how the shared universe impacts tone, style, character, and continuity. Today I'd like to take a deep dive into one of Marvel's biggest coping mechanisms, something I like to call corners of the MCU. These are parts of the universe that don't really touch the rest, things like isolated hermit kingdoms, microscopic realms, and the far reaches of outer space. Or the moon, ripping humans. Marvel loves these because they can place individual movies in these corners and not worry about messing with the continuity. We're here to talk about whether Marvel is running out of these corners and how they might get around this. I'm joined again by Anthony. Say hi, Anthony.
Hey, what's up?
And Izzy.
Hi, it's me.
For us, the lag between episodes is 10 minutes, but for our listeners, it was 1 week. So, someone want to catch them up on the last part?
Yeah, so we talked about, so to sort of set up this corners of the MCU, we talked about shared universes in general and what Marvel is still doing well and still sort of outpacing its competition in the midst of franchises like DC or Dark Universe, and talk about what Marvel does well in maintaining that and some of its criticisms. I think we did a healthy balance of both, and we talked a lot about continuity and how Marvel does and how it takes a lot of mental energy for Marvel to just maintain that continuity, even though they're doing they fuck up in some instances, but for the most part, they're doing a pretty good job. And one of the ways that they do that is through these corners of the MCU, as we'll talk about today.
Anything to add, Anthony?
She kind of got it right on the nose.
She really did. It was a good job, Izzy. Good work.
Yeah, that was pretty detailed.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
No preparation either.
Thank you.
So I wanted to start with just a quick brainstorm of what are the corners of the MCU that have already been introduced.
Space.
Asgard.
Space is definitely one.
Wakanda.
The 1940s.
The moon.
The moon.
The 1990s.
Hawaii. California.
Wait, no. Don't talk about Hawaii.
California.
Inhumans was dumb. We're not going to talk about Hawaii.
Okay.
California with Runaways.
And Ant-Man.
The quantum realm, right?
Yeah, the quantum
realm. Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Magic.
Other dimensions.
Mystic arts.
I'm not Kathmandu. Kamartaj. Sorry.
No. We don't even have to. We don't have to bring up the physical locations. It's Kevin Feige made it pretty clear. It was you have your Earth characters, your punch stuff really hard people. You have your space fuckers. They're up there hanging out in spaceships, and then you have your mystic arts people.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and that's that.
I think it's relevant to talk about in more specifics than that, because space, you do have your Asgard. If the Guardians of the Galaxy went to Asgard, you'd expect Thor to be there. It's not unrelated to the other movies.
Yeah.
Stuff like Nowhere, the giant skull, certain areas like that. Whereas if they, if the Avengers went to Nova Prime, then you'd expect someone to be oh, another band of adventurers came through here. It wouldn't be unconnected. You'd need to put Easter eggs and references. So on a more granular level, but yeah, that's a bunch of different places. And a lot of them have already been sort of brought into the MCU as a whole, or, in the case of Asgard, destroyed by a giant fire sword. But that sort of means that when you talk about certain regions of space, they're no longer completely separate from the continuity. Thor, for instance, can teleport anywhere in the universe now at will, I think, because the Bifrost. Yeah,
because Heimdall's also dead now, so I think that's also
we also have Doctor Strange can open up portals to essentially anywhere, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So they're getting some really serious transportation going in the MCU to where space is not necessarily disconnected on its own. Definitely things like Wakanda opening its borders has made it sort of part of the MCU proper. And there's lots of other stuff they do where they bring in people from these corners and say, like, hey, you're a part of the whole now. At the very least, the past has caught up to the present, so the 1940s are now no longer valid. But basically, I think that the MCU is sort of running out of these little pockets to put people in where they don't need to worry about the overall continuity. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think time is a really good example because it's sort of a dimension that Marvel's done a lot with, like with Captain Marvel in the future and Captain America. But
Captain Marvel in the past and the future.
Yeah, yes. But I think it's the best example of sort of like them running out of corners, because if you establish these things like in the 40s and the 90s, then you have to even think harder about its ramifications in the present. And it's sort of like it's a very double-edged like mine for Marvel, because they haven't done a lot of stuff with time in corners wise, but they also have to really think about like how it affects the present. And that's what I think all the corners sort of like, that's like the whole thing about corners, I think, that's not the whole thing, like part of corners in general, like they're great at establishing universes and there's a lot of untapped potential, but sooner or later you have to like think about its ramifications on like the present and all that. If that makes any sense. I think the one big corner that Marvel maybe hasn't covered is like prehistoric, like legend era, but at the same time, what can you tell?
No. What? I mean, the last thing to get to prehistoric is the Savage Lands in Antarctica, which they'll probably be going into in phase whatever, because we now have the X-Men rights back.
Phase 7.
Yeah, whatever. But they'll be going into the Savage Lands at some point, because that's important. And the Negative Zone, and what other space bullshit. But like, it makes me wonder, like, what happens if they've already covered all this stuff? Like, what else is there? Is there stuff that I haven't read in the comics that are there, or?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think space is...
I don't know.
Yeah, space is also, like... Space is endless. Space is, like, almost infinite. So, you're right in that they can just keep creating new... They can just keep creating, like, new, quote-unquote, like, new universes, like, or new planets.
New universe stuff. They could do... What if one-offs? They can do.
It's just
they can do a DC Marvel crossover. Which
no, they cannot.
In comics,
they cannot do that. I don't think that they would be able to do that.
Look, this is like 40 years in the future, dude.
Okay, well, how about like in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, they get the X-Men and the Fantastic Four in.
So I'm thinking about like if the Guardians of the Galaxy are good friends with Thor. Thor has the ability to teleport anywhere. I mean, in what place can they go that they would be like, we can't call Thor, we're on our own, you know? Like, Infinity War in a lot of ways brought together all of these different characters from the different spots, but it also gave them abilities that would make it, like, not realistic to have them be separated again.
I think, like... I think...
Izzy, go. No.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think, though... The first thing that comes to mind is, like, if politics border Thor from anything, like, or, like, his own, like, Thor's, like, the character Thor's, like, own fear of, like, going to a certain place. Like, if they went to, like, I don't know how it would be, like, with the world of the Frost Giants, but, or, I guess, any realm considering, like, political, like, ramifications, like, that's a realm that Thor sort of, like, can't really touch, and, like, that would be something they establish on. But, like, that's my only thought right now. I don't know how strong that would be or, like, how valid that would be.
Fair, yeah. And they can sort of make up... And they've done that in the past where they've sort of made up some... so-and-so is busy, so we gotta do this without. But do you think that audiences would want to watch a majority of Marvel's movies set in space? All on different planets and stuff?
No.
Yeah, if the potential for connecting everything made sense, then yeah.
I would argue that no. Like, I think you have to tie in Earth. Like, I don't know if you can.
You
Okay.
have to tie in Earth in some capacity.
Yeah, it's tying
look
Earth
at
in some
Nova.
capacity. Even like the Guardians, like they tie in like Peter is from Earth. Like, I can't think of an instance where maybe like a couple years in the future we'll have like an entire movie set in space, but like not now.
Well, we like Star Wars.
Yeah, but it's still.
And to go back to what I mentioned in the first part, like, about all of Star Wars, like, Star Wars has nothing to do with the Earth.
Yeah.
Well, you look at both Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok were set entirely in space. No Earth scenes whatsoever.
Well, there's like a couple, but they make up like 5 minutes.
At the beginning of Guardians
Totally.
1.
And also Thor Ragnarok.
And there's some in Guardians, too.
Oh, that's true.
And-
That's true.
Yeah.
And the some in Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
The what in Thor Ragnarok?
With Doctor Strange. They go
Oh,
to Sanctum Sanctorum.
that's right. That's right.
And then in Guardians 2, there was the whole seed scene
Yes, there
where it
was.
attacked the Dairy Queen.
But, I mean, do you think that that's a direction that Marvel's going to go in more often now? The Xandar's Mightiest Avengers or something like that?
They don't have that. That's not a thing.
I feel like you have to wait. I feel like it's going to be based on Captain Marvel because it's like, I mean, it's still like a half and half, like, Earth space movie, but you can also, like, judge how we feel, how, like, the audience, like, in the fandom, like, feels about space in general, because Captain Marvel is part Kree, so, like, it has, like, that space sort of tie to it. She's coming to Earth.
She's not part Kree. She's 100% human, but got her powers.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. But, like,
No.
it's like, but I think the story seems like it's positioning itself that, like, she mainly grew up on Kree, and then she crashed to Earth, and it's just, like, in the 90s. And, like, it's sort of the reverse of, like, Peter Quill, but, like, he grew up on Earth, and then now is in space. And so it's, like, kind of a reverse, and so that might be interesting to look at.
Well, she grew up on Earth, then went into space, and then came back.
Yeah.
After, like, 10 years.
Yeah, and there's, like, hints that she doesn't remember her life here, like, on Earth. So, I don't know, I feel like Captain Marvel will answer, like, a lot of the space questions we might have, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does seem to
agree.
be a way that they are going. I think that the space time has increased in Marvel movies. But I think that
More space stuff.
I think that is a reaction to them trying to spread out and trying to distance the huge number of characters they have away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder if even space will become too small at some point.
Jeez.
I think space... I don't know if space is ever small. I think space gets too big enough to a point where you don't understand it. But I don't know if...
Yeah.
I think that's a problem. I think that's the problem. It's not that space is small, it's that space gets confusing.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. No one knows where stuff is in relation to other stuff or what's important. Yeah,
Yeah, like there's too many planets to keep
fair.
track of and all that. Like, Doctor Who is, I think, a good example of that because there's so many planets and species and alien races, and you already assume, like, space is endless. And, like, that's the cool thing about Doctor Who. I don't watch it that much anymore. I might watch a new season, but that's sort of... like, that's sort of, like, the association that, like, I make. I think the difference between, like, Star Wars and the Avengers and then Marvel is that, like, you already... like, from the get-go, Star Wars is about space. Like, you established that. But for Marvel, like, it started on Earth, and then you're branching out more into space. And so I think if you try to distance yourself too much from that, like... something might get lost. Something is in danger of getting lost in the shuffle. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to sum up what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
What about on the magic side? If we wanted to introduce another magical character, would they have to interact with Doctor
Are there
Strange?
other magical characters?
Well,
Are there other magical characters other than Doctor
Like-
Strange?
well,
currently
if you
in
bring
the
in
MCU?
the...
Other than Wong?
I mean, if you wanted to introduce one like in the future, like they are announcing. I don't know what another Marvel magical character is.
Are there characters in the comics that are
like Doctor
Doctor Strange?
Probably, but I have not read enough.
Are there big names? Like what? Oh, we also have to get Namor. You know, Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
The Submariner.
I can't. I mean, the other magic heroes I'm thinking of are X-Men. Like, magic with, like, a K at the end. Like, that's... Like, she is... Her powers are based on, like, sorcery and magic.
Like Doctor Strange magic?
Well, like, it's X-Men, so how she's going to be introduced to that, we'll see. But... Magic is also an element that...
Wikipedia lists 107 Marvel characters that use magic as their primary mode of doing stuff. A surprising number of these are already in the MCU, but there are a lot that aren't, and there do seem to be a lot of protagonists as well. Lionheart, Lorianic, Nico Minoru.
Oh, Nico's in the MCU.
She is.
I mean, that's one. Yes, she is.
Yeah.
We don't know. We'll talk about that.
It is.
Are you done?
No.
So the approach that they've really taken with magic is that it's like advanced science type stuff, including Doctor Strange, because it's just siphoning energy from other dimensions. Right?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, that is how the Ancient One explains it. Like, it's hinting that there's other dimensions of magic, and so there are more possibilities for more kinds of magic. But the magic is science approach is something that they do primarily, and it's a little frustrating because it's like, shut the fuck up, it's magic. But like, it's an approach they use a lot, and I think is their like primary like sort of coping thing for. I think they don't want to. I don't know if they want to touch. Maybe they don't want to touch magic because once they do magic, it's like a set rules. Like, look at Harry Potter. Look at other fantasy realms. Like, there's like a system in place that you can't really change, and there's really not a lot of other kinds of magic, but they all fall within like the same umbrella. I think Marvel's scared to do magic, like other kinds of magic, because they know when they do, then they have to explain a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that Doctor Strange brought to my mind was the concept of like other dimensions and setting movies in other dimensions. Like maybe there's a major villain operating out of the swamp dimension, and so then they jump into
No, it's not the swamp. It would be they would give it numbers. They would introduce like 616 and.
You think they would?
Well, they'll probably do. No, they will. Well, they would never introduce 616. They would do like the universe we're in, which is 9,999, and introduce another one, which is like 1,000,003 or something. I don't know.
So I draw a distinction between stuff like the dark dimension or the mirror dimension, and like another continuity of Earth, which is like an alternate timeline.
So people throw the words dimension and like around like willy-nilly. Dimension is just another plane of existence.
Yeah.
In the same universe as our own.
Yes.
So if there is someone that sees in 5 dimensions, they're still in our universe, but they could see through other layers of dimension. So the like Dormammu exists in another dimension parallel to ours, but it's not in a separate universe.
Right.
Whereas, like, 616 to, like, the MCU universe are parallel universes.
Right. So I'm talking about separate dimensions. Setting movies with characters from our continuity in another dimension of our universe.
So another dimension. So what other dimensions are there? You have your dark dimension, your mirror dimension. You have the quantum dimension.
Well, they could probably make one up if they wanted to. But do you think they would do that?
But But what are you? Are you saying a parallel world, or are you saying another dimension?
Another dimension.
Dimension.
I'm saying like Doctor Strange hears tell about some problem in another dimension we haven't heard of before, and he hops into that one. It's another dimension, just like the mirror dimension. He goes and does
what
the
does it
whole
look
movie
like?
there.
Oh,
it doesn't matter.
What
It
does
doesn't
it look
matter.
Like? Oh, okay. I don't know. So if there's anything in the comics, I mean, there's the Micronauts. Those are things that exist in the quantum dimension.
Well, yeah, because the quantum dimension, there might be whatever the Ant-Man thing he does next is might be in that dimension, right?
Well, there's the Micronauts.
Yeah.
There's a civilization that lives in the quantum dimension called the Micronauts.
Yeah. Do you think they're going to do more of that?
It's owned by Mattel for toy reasons.
What? Really?
I don't know. Yeah, that's like a thing. So, yeah, probably not. They'd probably give him a different name.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't. Thinking of ideas of like different places they can go to is like kind of confusing, but Eternity sounds cool. Like the Eternals.
Yeah, I think they
the actual character Eternity. Sorry.
Yeah, I think they kind of like opened up like the. I think that's important, like in like setting sort of like a new sort of corner for the MCU like to play in, and yeah, I stand that thought. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean it sounds like they're going bigger with that kind of stuff, Eternals and Celestials and that kind of thing. But I'm thinking not just bigger, but like different. Like, how do you store a movie's plot somewhere that it doesn't interact with other plots, so you don't need to worry about continuity? And my thinking is space is one place, alternate dimensions are another place. And are there any other places like that? Any other avenues that they could take to just squirrel things away so they don't have to worry about it?
Did we already rule out time?
I don't know. Did we?
They can do future stuff. Time
That's
travel.
still within like the bounds of. It's still within like the bounds of like time. Like maybe, like it's maybe like time, but like as I mentioned, like it's a very dangerous game to put a corner in because it's very ripe, but they have to also think about you're also putting more constraints on yourself.
Yeah, I think time might have more continuity to think about than it solves. Because if you go to the past, you have to make sure everything works out the exact same way. If you go to the future, you have to figure out where your movies are going so that you can do that world building. So that's even harder.
Yeah. So you mentioned space, alternate dimensions.
So I think that what Anthony's talking about yeah.
All I can think of like geographical locations, but even that I think is getting smaller and harder to.
Absolutely. So I think what Anthony's talking about with parallel universes, right? Like another copy of Earth.
Yeah.
They could easily create an avenue that direction if they wanted to do that and have a Marvel multiverse.
I just think it would be too confusing for the fans.
I mean, they did it on the Flash, and those aren't like all rocket scientists.
Do we like the Flash?
I haven't watched the Flash since I taught this Stuco, so.
But do we understand the plot of the Flash when it's like, oh, an evil villain from Earth 2, a separate Earth, like has attacked? Like, I don't know. I feel like people could get on board with that.
Yeah.
Earth 2, separate Earth, coming to theaters this fall.
I think when pop culture gets smarter, we'll be more aware and okay with like parallel universes. I think what the Arrowverse has done is that it's bringing these like multiverses into like sort of a more mainstream capacity because that's what like DC is primarily doing on their TV properties, and they're a hit. And like I think culture has been getting a lot more like quote unquote like nerdier. Like look how much Infinity War has exploded into pop culture, and I think like how like our fascination with like technology. I think as pop culture gets smarter, multiverses are going to be like more like accepted and like an okay, and the fans will understand hopefully a little bit more.
I think we're there. I think you look at Rick and Morty, and they've done multiverses like cranked to 11, and people love Rick and Morty. They are on board with the idea.
Yeah, but those parallel universes they don't care about.
It's true. And then I think that you have to do something interesting with it, right? Like you need to show, this is a universe where Iron Man did kill Bucky Barnes and Captain America at the end of Civil War and became a dictator or something like that. You know, like some sort of interesting character moment, a sort of like what if. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is already sort of playing with that. With
Agents of Hydra.
Yeah, the framework and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I think we're ready.
I would like what if things. What ifs would be cool.
Yeah. I think that the fan base is smart enough and understands the concept of multiverses well enough to accept the science.
Well, I think the fan bases isn't the question. I think it's popular culture, like the public, like the people who would just roll into Infinity War because it's the popular thing. Like, will they understand it? Because I mean, like as you said, like we're understanding it now, but I think I'm talking more about like the general public.
Sure.
That might seem like but I think
we've already talked about how Marvel movies aren't catching the public up on Marvel stuff anymore, though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And once you've accepted that there is an Iron Man, there is a Captain America, or whatever, how hard is it to accept that, like, dimensional barrier, and now there's another Iron Man, another Captain America, but, like, they've had slightly different lives. I think that's introducible in the movie. My main question is, once you've introduced the Marvel multiverse, is that technically the end of the shared universe model?
Well, what if, let's say...
No.
Yeah, because what if you want to take, let's say this Marvel universe right now is, like, Earth 1. And let's say you make another Marvel universe that's Earth 2. Yes, I realize I'm using Flash terms. And then you want Doctor Strange, for example, to visit Earth 2. Then what do you call that in your Earth 2? Well, it's like sort of universe. What is that then?
No, that's true, because you'd have your Doctor Strange with all of the history that we've seen in his movies on just like a separate area where you're familiar with the characters, but they're different now in this place. I don't know. It sort of blurs the line a little bit between independent stories and the shared universe model, because you can sort of do way, way, way more with the world if you can just sort of hop over to a world where things are different.
Yeah.
I also think that'd be a really fun way to introduce the X-Men, is just to have them be in a separate universe that they visit.
Yeah, I don't know how they did it with Supergirl when Supergirl went to the CW for the first time and how they merged the universes, but I think that's...
You go really fast. That's how.
And then they just mush together?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I expected.
Yes. The writers of The Flash were behind it, so they just said fast over and over again until they made that the plot.
I guess, I don't know if this is a related question to the multiverse, but I wanted to bring it up because I mentioned it, and then he said, that's part 2. But when my friend watched Infinity War, and his thoughts were about it, were sort of how I felt about Solo. Like, he generally liked it, but he was saying that, like, you know, after Infinity War, I think Marvel should, like, slow down, like, stop, you know, like they should, like, slow down. And I think he sort of liked the sort of multiverse model. And so I think when you bring up the multiverse, you also kind of bring in the question of, not only is the shared universe over, but does Marvel stop making movies? I mean, I think the answer to the latter one is no, but you also do kind of wonder, like, when will Marvel, like, if will Marvel slow down?
Right. Like, are these problems not going to come up because they're going to sort of peter out before they need a multiverse to keep telling stories?
Yeah.
Anthony?
Sorry. Wasn't paying attention. I was reading something.
We're just talking about, like, are these problems so far in the future that, like, something else will happen to Marvel before this even comes up? Like, is this way too far?
I think this might be a problem in 5 years.
Okay.
But even then is, like, too far of a leap.
Yeah, I think, like...
You know? Like, we might have, like, Guardians 3 may come out in 2021.
Hopefully. I don't know if that is going to happen.
When is Far From Home coming
2019.
out? 2020?
2019.
2019. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
It's the first one.
It's in July. It's July 5th, 2019.
It's the first one
after
Infinity War Part 2.
So we only get 2 movies next year, and then we have a full year. Until July.
Well, that's the thing. Like, that's the thing, because Kevin Feige hasn't made his sort of keynote about Phase 4 because you're going to reveal everything about Avengers 4. So we might have 2 movies. We might have fucking 5.
One.
Oh, they might. Yeah. Well, actually, no, you're right. They might push it back. But like, we might have 2 movies. We might have 15. Like, that's not gonna happen. But like, that's something that like we just don't know until we can't really give anything concrete until Kevin Feige makes like his Phase 4 keynote speech.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah.
That's interesting, though. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think some of the things that we're talking about is important to bring up, but I think some of the other stuff we can, like... I think the inevitable heat death of America is going to happen before any of the problems that we're encountering that we're talking about will even come up.
Okay, you think so? I think it's going to come up. My personal view is that it will happen in 10 to 15 Phase 5, Marvel will start running into problems where they can't keep track anymore and need to start pushing characters into other dimensions, into far-flung planets, and could potentially raise up the multiverse as a way to like just spread everyone out a little thinner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. Yeah, just based on like the tone of like this sort of conversation, it feels like it is kind of inevitable. The big question is that, I think the question is also like, how will they do it? How will they reach that point? In a way.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
how is it going to implode or explode?
It'd be really cool to do like a Secret Wars thing where like. I think in Secret Wars, like, 2 universes, like, 2 parallel universes are, like, on a collision course. And the heroes of that other dimension, like, come into ours to destroy it, to try and, like, make sure that theirs isn't destroyed in the collision. And then, like, it's a whole thing. Alternate Reed Richards versus the Avengers, that kind of thing. Like, that, they could quite reasonably do that, next week. Like, if they came out with a movie where people from another universe came, that's a movie plot. They can do that right now. They don't need to set it up or anything. Because the whole point of that is, like, it's kind of shocking and a reveal. So, I don't know. I think that is an option on the table that they might take in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I know, like, they're setting up the Skrulls now, which I think is going to help them a lot. And I think, I don't know if it was the Russos or Kevin Feige or someone high up in the Marvel food chain mentioned that they do want to do Secret Wars eventually. And so it'll be interesting to see how, like, they kind of... Like, when they do that, it'll also feel weird to me, like, from a personal standpoint, because it was, like, I was a fan of Marvel when Secret Wars, like, the Secret Wars storyline came out. Like, it'll feel like... I'll feel old, in a sense. That's how I'll feel. Yes. But, I think it very much is, like, a question of, like... I think it might be a question of when rather than, like, if. And also, do you know when I'll also feel old when they do Avengers vs. X-Men, if they ever do it? Or inevitably when they do it, because who knows how they're bringing these people in.
Yeah, I think the Fantastic Four and the X-Men is going to add a lifespan, add a few more years to the lifespan of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do we want to do closing remarks?
Yes.
Let's go Anthony this time.
Wait.
Okay,
yes,
go for it.
but like,
I mean, this is kind of like scary things to think about. Like, what do we do?
I think I think the scariness and the fear of the unknown are contributing to this shorter episode.
Well, and this is how Marvel must feel,
also
right?
it's like,
this is how they're actually feeling in the studio, where they're like, where do we even go from here? Like, what are we gonna...
But also, like, think about this. We have a full year we have to make more content.
Like, we, like, the teachers,
the
or, like...
the
Kevin Feige,
us.
like...
No, like, AP Marvel has to make content every single week for a full year after Captain Marvel and
I see what you're saying.
and Part 2 is, whatever Avengers 4 is. So I'm just thinking, fuck.
We'll do it. We've got stuff prepped.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have at least 5 episodes in the works.
Yeah, that's only 5 weeks. We need 52.
We'll get there.
We might have to move it to a bi-weekly thing.
Ooh,
we'll get there.
Don't tell our adoring fans that. That's not what they want to hear.
No, I mean, we'll have to do it like... Wait, hold on. Far From Home is immediately after in 2019.
Yes. Well, these are questions that Chris can answer, and you can decide whether to cut this shit or not.
We have those 3 movies. So then after July, if they don't have something else going on until the following spring...
We could also do deep dives into topics we've touched on before. So we talked about visual effects. We talked about in the earlier part of this episode, or last episode, I guess. Sort of like the tone and consistency. Those things, color grading, those things can be topics of future episodes where you just do like a much deeper dive and get maybe like someone who's more of an expert on that stuff. This stuff was really just like, how does that affect, like, specifically dealing with, like, merging different characters?
Plot points.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
I think this was this was another good piece to the conversation. Like, what are these worlds that Marvel is setting up for us? Like, this could change after Avengers 4. They could say something that's drastically... that will drastically impact what we're saying in this episode.
Sure.
Oh yeah, I think
the trailer's going to come out. The trailer's going to come out for whatever Avengers 4 is in like 2 months. So get hyped. The title's probably going to come out.
Yeah, with the trailer.
I say in the next 2 weeks.
I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out with the trailer.
No, I don't think it's going to come out with the trailer.
I think they're
going to announce it before.
Really, I just think it'd be really cool.
That would be cool, but they wouldn't be able to hold it in. Plus, they have to do so much other stuff. For like, they can't just like, I don't know. Like, what are they going to do? They're going to say like, everyone watch Jimmy Kimmel tonight, and we'll reveal not only the title but a clip of it, and it's like. Wow.
Yeah,
But, like, I can't watch it. I have to be on cable, so I'll know the title before I even watch any content.
Yeah.
That's normal, I think.
Mm-hmm.
No, not necessarily.
Knowing the title of a movie before you see a trailer of the movie?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
We knew it was going to be called Thor Ragnarok before we saw the trailer.
Yeah.
We knew it was going to be called Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. We knew it was going to be called Avengers Infinity War.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is very tangential, and I don't know if we're even going to include this in the episode, but like...
Yeah.
It's all going in. It's all going in there. We need the red time.
Okay. But yeah, it does... I think it's...
I don't know, it's just kind of thinking of like the end of this is like weird to think about
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, it's like that ominous fear of the unknown and the abyss that is, when is this ending, that we just haven't even looked into, or that even Feige and Marvel have looked into.
Because it's been going on through our lives through huge transitions from high school to college to adult life.
Yeah, like all of...
Like, it feels like it's been going on forever.
It went through middle school, high school, college, and now when I'm an adult.
It's half... No, I'm 20. It's half my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
weird
half
to
my
think
life.
about that ending.
Yeah.
It's weird because at some point, like, it will be... A majority of our lives would have occurred during the MCU. There are middle schoolers who their entire lives have been in the MCU.
Jesus.
Freshmen in college, 10 years of their 18-year lives have been in the MCU.
God. Yeah. It's scary to think about. It's weird how this discussion about corners transitioned to us talking about multiverses in the end. But I think, like, well, like, the main topic of, like, this, I'm just helping to wrap up because it is also, like, 3:57, and I want to make sure you guys get it. But, like, it's weird, like, how so it's interesting how this topic of corners has sort of led us to talk about, like, is this the end, or, like, how do we frame the end, like, with these multiverses? But it's in a time of unknowing, and I think the corners do show us that, you know, by sort of looking at these these mechanisms that Marvel uses to maintain their universe, you also get to sort of expose them and talk about in general, like, how do they end, in like how like, is it gonna, are we gonna run out of corners, or are we gonna run out of time?
Right.
And that's something that comes with these corners, and I think that as we think about the end of the MCU, it's hard to think about and, like, becoming really philosophical, because the moment when it does end, if any, is going to be a really big emotional payoff.
Absolutely.
Even more than Avengers 4. Yeah, so that's something to delve into as we sort of wrap up today.
Yeah, let's hear closing thoughts, Anthony, and then I'll take us out.
Yeah.
Just, oh God, the end, dear God, the end.
Good stuff. I love it.
That's it.
I'll end on a more positive note. I will say that it is a testament to Marvel's incredible storytelling and supreme skill that we're worried that they're going to run out of concepts before they run out of willing fans who love the movies and want to go see them. I think that it's incredible for any movie franchise to reach the point where they're out of concepts of physical space to explore, but they're not out of people who love what they do, want to come see the next thing, and are invested in their universe. So
it's usually the other way around.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Usually the fans
absolutely. So I mean, if Marvel dies because they've exhausted every possible story they can tell, that is the greatest success of any entertainment that you could possibly imagine. Ever. So
in the history of human existence.
It's cool to be even worried about it. Thanks so much, guys. This episode was sort of what I was doing.
Brought to you by
I sort of had this idea at work and followed it through like this huge thought chain and wrote a 2-parter episode on it. Thanks for coming on the journey with me. It's been great hearing from you.
Of course.
Twitter stuff, things.
Thomas, where can we find you?
Never find me. I shift locations every year so as not to be tracked down.
Is this a political reason, or it's just like I don't want people to find me? There it is. That's a good. Yeah, people suck. You can find me at the Pizza Taco on Twitter. I yell about how much people suck.
You can find me at Delirlin on Twitter. I don't use it a lot because the news is awful and makes me want to down a bottle of vodka every time I see it. But I promise I go on there sometimes. Thank you to Stephen Molitor for our music. Thank you to Charles Villanueva for that sweet, sweet logo. And with that, thanks, guys.
See ya.
Bye!